And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for joining us today. And I say us because even though Dean Wysocki, Chief Meteorologist, is not here, I have the distinct pleasure of having with me a fill-in guest host. And I'm thrilled to have Bill Hejl from Castleton. Bill, how are you?
I'm good. I brought the sunshine.
You did, and thank you for that. I was getting some when I was in Pierre. There was some sun down there, but boy, it's been a while up here in North Dakota.
And it's above zero.
A little windy.
And the mosquitoes are still dead.
Thank God. But box elder bugs are not. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
I swear I vacuum up at least 7 or 8 every other day.
Got to get some home defense and spray it around your door.
I'll be honest. They're just box elder bugs. They're not the worst. If it was black flies and mosquitoes, I'd probably be pretty freaked out. But the box elder bugs are just annoying.
True, but you can take care of them.
I could. Actually, I was driving down the road on my way to Pierre for South Dakota Cattlemen's Association's meeting earlier this week. And in my pickup, I remember brushing my hair out of my face thinking, what is that? There was a box elder bug. He went with me. I figured out where he was about somewhere around Roscoe, South Dakota. He was hanging out on my head.
Did it want per diem?
I was going to charge him travel expenses.
Okay.
But for those who tune in because they want to hear it's weather and ag in focus, just a quick update on weather. Today we're looking for a high of 14. As your fill-in meteorologist, I think that's a big win. Partly cloudy, and we are expecting to get to 26 tomorrow. Kind of a big deal. But today we're going to go through some strong winds blowing at about 15 to 20. Now, Saturday, there is a chance of some freezing rain. Sounds like more of a concern to the north end of the valley, or excuse me, to the south end of the valley versus to the north. And we're going to see where all of that lands. But nonetheless, there is still a little bit of a chance tomorrow. So watch out for that and slow down when needed.
That one I had not heard yet.
Well, and I'll be honest, for those of us who are going to be driving to tailgating tomorrow, that can be a little bit of a concern. There's a lot of trailers that are on the road, et cetera. So
I'm headed to Bismarck.
Ooh, legislative work?
Farmers Union annual meeting.
Okay, so let's just back up a step.
Okay.
I know you, and I forget that I should tell everybody else how and what you do. So what kind of a little bio would you like to give about yourself, Bill?
Oh, boy. 34 years Air Force, 33 years farming. Part of the Air Force that I was also farming was North Dakota Air Guard. Lived away from North Dakota for about 14 years. Did some lobbying for the sugar beet growers, and I was the president of the World Association of Beet and Cane Growers for 4 years.
It's kind of a sweet job, wasn't it?
It was. I was known as Sweetness.
I think that's awesome.
It was fun, a lot of fun.
So, okay, let's back up just a little bit. You were in the military, but then after retiring, decided second career, or did farming and military overlap at all?
They overlapped a lot.
How so?
I had 14 years active duty and tried to get into the North Dakota Air Guard, and that was the first thing I liked about them. They were saving all their officer spots for the back seaters in the F4s.
The back seaters. Could you tell them how to drive from back there?
No, they told the pilot how to drive a few times.
All right.
But they were trying to save officer spots for them because they were switching to single-seat F-16s. And that told me that outfit takes care of its people and helps them get to 20 years of retirement. 2 years later, I was able to come in as a staff sergeant and order paper plates for the cooks for 2 years.
I feel like I should salute. And if I need paper plates for tailgating, I know who to call.
Yes, you do. I probably still have a stack or two.
Oh, well, I bet they're durable.
Yeah. Then I was recommissioned and became assistant commander of the services flight to cooks.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
There was never a dull moment.
No, not really.
Part of those dull moments, and one of the stories that I know of you, happened right around the time of 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
And it combines farming and flying.
Yeah.
Can you tell that story, or is it still classified?
You're going to have to remind me which story that is in that time. There's a lot of stories in that time.
If I'm not mistaken, you were in the field when you were given a call by a commander.
Oh, I was cleaning a grain bin for soybeans.
Go. Cleaning a grain bin.
And I was called by the chief of staff, and he said, you better come on up. Prior to that, I was cleaning the bin, and my mom came out and said a plane crashed into one of the Twin Towers. And I was thinking Cessna, little, single engine something. And then whatever it was, 20 minutes later, she came back out, and a second one hit the second tower. And then I thought, boy, there's something going on now. And within a few minutes, the chief of staff called and said, "You better go home and put your uniform on."
Oh, boy.
And that evening, I was in the command post at the 119th Fighter Wing, and the wing commander came in. He had just returned from Washington, D.C. He had taken a 2-seat trainer variant of the F-16 out to Montana to get the Secretary of the Interior and return him to Washington, D.C. And he said, "Bill, I was the only aircraft in the sky over North America."
That's a weird feeling.
Very.
Very. And there were a lot of farmer response at that time because so many of you were National Guard,
Right.
Reserve, et cetera. I've got some friends and neighbors where I live that were part of that crew as well.
Right.
And I don't know if this is a fair question to ask you, but how did everybody feel that day? I mean, harvest certainly fell to the wayside, fairly high level of apprehension.
I was surprised at how nervous a lot of the younger troops were, 18, 19-year-olds. They were
Really?
actually scared in Fargo.
Okay.
And, of course, we had the only armed aircraft in the sky that day. That may be the story I haven't told you. Our intel, the story is, I've never asked him if it's totally true. I bet it is pretty close to true. Our intel officer was watching CNN and saw the first aircraft hit the first tower. And we had an alert detachment at Langley, had F-16s on alert, but you don't leave them loaded.
Right.
That'll kink up the 20-millimeter ammunition in the Gatling gun.
Oh, my gosh.
He didn't call anybody for permission. He called the alert detachment and said, "Load the birds."
Get ready.
And that's the only reason we were the only loaded fighter aircraft that day.
And ready to
All
go.
the other fighter aircraft didn't have any ammo on them.
How long does it take to load?
That may or... Yeah, they don't have them anymore. It's probably around a half hour.
Okay. And the timeliness matters.
Absolutely.
I have so many things going on over here. One of them is I have a listener who just reminded me I don't salute enlisted only officers. So thank you for the advice.
Very true.
Also painted on an F4. So you've got some folks listening that are military.
Oh, man.
You should know that, and in case you weren't familiar with this statistic, 44% of military come from rural and farm backgrounds.
Yes, that's true.
And do you think that's higher here in North Dakota?
It
I mean,
is.
small population, et cetera.
I've read that several times, that this
Okay.
is one of the highest, if not the highest, in the nation.
That's huge.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to? Do we all need the GI Bill to go to school?
That's a little bit of it. There were some folks who were there for help going to college.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was an awful lot of folks who just had a relative, a dad or a grandpa, who had served in World War II or had been a happy hooligan. They wanted to be a happy hooligan.
All right. For those who are listening, because we do live stream all across the world. And we have listeners all over the U.S., and they're watching us on Facebook and YouTube and Acres TV. So that's us down there on those TV monitors. But the question would be, when you say happy hooligan, to those of us in the region, we know who that is, but others might not.
Okay. And I actually got to meet the namesake. Our vice commander, Colonel Tom Larson, his father, Dwayne Pappy Larson, he was known as Pappy because he had flown in World War II. And he was in his 40s, I think, and to a fighter pilot that you're Pappy if you're in your 40s.
I can see why
and
you're called that.
To begin with, they were known as Pappy's Hooligans. And later they became the Happy Hooligans in North Dakota Air National Guard.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, all those things that I learned that I just had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
Did you find any of your military training very useful as you were farming?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I learned all about spare part kits. But, if you're running a sprayer,
yes,
have one of every nozzle and every small part in a sandwich bag in the toolbox. Keeps all the dust off them, and you're ready to go if something breaks.
There's nothing wrong with having spare parts.
Right.
I thought, honestly, a few spare parts are good. The right tools mattered, and every farm is missing a 9/16, about a 10 millimeter. And that was always my idea. Is that
and a 5/8.
And a 5/8. And I should be giving that away at farm shows. That should be the one thing. I don't have to give you a full tool set, but you need those sockets and those wrenches because we lose them all the time.
With your name on them so they remember every time they grab it.
And then when you dig it back up after you forgot it on the frame of your
they wonder
chisel
who
plow.
was that 40 years ago.
Where did it go? Yep, I know what you're saying. Oh, and with all of those things that happened at one time, did you ever feel pretty stretched thin that you may have to make a decision one over the other, or was it very complimentary?
Oh no, you were stretched thin.
Yeah.
I was unloading a soybean truck in my yard during harvest that year. I was on active duty,
Yep.
but I had a day off, and I was unloading a truck, and I was conducting an interview. By then I had become the installation inspector general,
Okay.
and I had an incident I had to look into, and I was doing a telephone interview while I was dumping a soybean truck.
Look, you were kicking off multitasking before anybody else thought it was a good idea.
I never said I thought it was a good idea.
Well, you've watched me over here multitasking, so
Oh yeah,
it's already been quite a day,
yes.
but we're getting along very well. So, folks, we are going to take a moment because the American Ag Network is going to bring us the market updates, but also we want to continue to listen to Bill as we have no set agenda today. I have some headlines we can talk about. You've got all these things that you've done in the community, especially when you talk about World Sugar. I think we just get a chance to visit today. It's a Friday. We'll call it
Absolutely, and we'll
Casual
probably talk
Friday.
about Christmas shopping. I was just at the Green Door getting a gift certificate.
How excellent. Well, we'll do that and so much more.
Okay.
We will be back after this break. For those who have questions, don't forget you can be reaching out to us via the Red Wing shoe line of 701-293-9000, and we'll be back. Welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for joining us. I always say thank you because you wouldn't have to, but I'm really glad you do because it's a lot of fun. And this whole week with Dean being gone, I've had the opportunity to bring in some really great guests and guest co-hosts, which just makes the time go so quickly. And I think out of the co-hosts I've had this week, I have met I've met two of them for sure through Twitter, which is one of the ways that Bill and I know each other, is talking through social media. But also next week when I have two more guests coming in, one's a farmer that I know and one is a local super fan that I met through Twitter. So why not use social media in that way, right? It's
Absolutely.
excellent. So thinking about social media and what you do with farming, let's just take that tangent for a second. How often do you talk about farming and the things that you do on social media, or is it maybe now the point where you're just there to enjoy it a little bit more?
I'm enjoying it a little bit more lately, but boy, for the first 10 years, it was almost all the time.
Yeah.
You know, people had no idea what a sugar beet was. They didn't really know anything about North Dakota. It was kind of fun to talk about. And plus, for me, I could ask whoever, where are you from? What's it like there?
Speaking of those sugar beets and what they look like, excuse me, as a grower, that then led you all the way up the chain, so to speak. You've been chairman of American Crystal, of the board, correct?
No, I was not. Just a board member.
Just a board member.
Yes.
But then if you weren't the chairman, how did that get you to the point of the World Sugar Organization?
That was part of the Red River Valley Sugar Beet Growers Association.
Okay, let's talk about what those differences are. So
sure.
American Crystal Sugar is our processor. They're a cooperative here.
One of the processors here locally.
Yep.
Mindak Farmers Cooperative is another processor.
Down in
They do not have a growers association. They have one factory. And Southern Minnesota Sugar Beet Cooperative in Renville has one factory, and I don't believe they have a growers association either. The other difference here is the Growers Association at American Crystal is the group that decided to purchase the company from the stockholders. It was a private stockholder company.
Right.
And they decided to keep the Growers Association. I've seen this work. If you're talking to a member of Congress about the Sugar Act, which is everything to the sugar industry that protects us from dumped sugar from all over the world, those members of Congress really take a message to heart if it's coming from a mom or dad or son that's actually driving the tractor than some shareholder in a private corporation.
Absolutely.
It's an effective way to get to tell your message, and we bring staffers and even members of Congress out here. It's gotten tougher with all the new rules on lobbying, but it's the right thing to do. Because every 2 years, there's like a 30 to 40% turnover in the House and Senate of staffers and members.
And that's where we're sitting right now when getting ready for the farm bill that's currently stalled out.
Right.
We had well over 50% of congressional leaders who had never voted on farm bill, were not from farm districts or from states that have very little agriculture.
Right. And for like, 40, 50 years, guys like me long ago would go out and talk to members of Congress about sugar beets and not have a photo of a sugar beet on them.
Then
we finally figured out it would be a nice idea to have a photograph with you so you could try and leave it with them.
Yes.
But then, oh my gosh, electronic things. And then, oh my gosh, smartphones.
Oh.
Send it all to them ahead of time and they've got it on their smartphone.
Absolutely. They're the things that we can talk about in farming. And North Dakota has such varied agriculture. Every time I'm in a field, if I take a photo, whether it's sunflowers, dry beans, canola, et cetera, that always generates a lot of questions. In fact, I had made mention to someone earlier today about sugar beets, and that person's in North Carolina and just said, "Oh, what?"
Yeah.
They really didn't have any understanding that.
No, my lovely bride was from North Carolina. They had never heard of sugar beets.
So with all of that, and I know I'm not going to get this in the right order. World Association of Beet and Cane Growers. Okay.
Growers, yeah.
And what does that organization do?
Advocates for farmers all around the world who grow sugar beets and sugar cane. There's also the International Sugar Organization that represents all the governments, the countries in the world that buy and sell sugar.
And
And the United States is not a member, even though it was a founding nation.
why?
We have a free trade policy, and we have a Sugar Act that has a tariff that protects our sugar from all that low, or not low priced, underpriced,
Underpriced.
dumped.
Okay.
They have extra sugar, and they literally dump it for whatever they can get.
Cane sugar is the primary focus of sugar across the world.
Yes.
Beet sugar is a smaller percentage of that.
Right. Here, sugar cane is almost 50%. Sugar beets are almost 50%. And 15% is imported. We're the second or third largest importing nation in the world. 45 countries have a quota of sugar they can sell us without paying the tariff. And in some of those countries, it's 2/3 of their gross national product to sell us sugar.
How many of those countries are primarily sugar cane?
Almost all of them. I would bet all of them
If you
are.
were to take that guess.
Yeah.
Okay. I find that just
Although they
fascinating.
grow sugar beets in Syria.
Hold on. When I think of Syria,
Hot. Just
Very
like
hot.
California, which has sugar beets.
but also in the way that I think of them, that's an area very, as you said, hot, very arid, but not a lot of mechanization.
Correct.
Or would I be wrong?
Oh, you're correct.
Okay, so that's a very hand labor intensive situation.
I remember talking with Howard Dahl, one of the owners of Amity Technology. They make sugar beet harvesters and defoliators, the machine that takes the leaves off before
Right.
you pull the root out of the ground. And he visited China, and they were doing all of it by hand still, like we used to do in World War II.
Right. What does their processing look like? Because I guess the bigger question is, if we're importing that 15%, is it coming in a granular sugar
Yes,
form?
yes.
Okay, so it's a white table sugar as though we would be familiar with.
I believe,
Sure.
no, some of it comes in raw and
Okay.
and then they put it in centrifuges. That's all you have to do to convert raw brown sugar to
Into
white sugar is simply spin it and spritz water on it.
there are
The molasses is on the sugar crystal. The sugar crystal is naturally white. And so there's tiny holes in the tub that's spinning, and the water spritzing the crystals makes the molasses wash off the crystal and go out through the holes, and the crystals stay in the tub.
Bill, we have been in this discussion together on Twitter or X multiple times. All of those purists, when it comes to lefsa, are thinking white sugar only. If only they knew.
Yeah.
The brown sugar really is just a different step, one step past
If
or
you're
before.
in the factory, you can literally lift up the lid on the centrifuge. I think you still can, and watch the brown go out as they spritz the water on it. It's just hot water. And the only thing you do in a sugar beet factory to get the sugar to come out of the root,
Yep.
they slice the root up into slices, and they pour pure 150-degree hot water over the slices as they're being augured up like 4 stories. And the sugar's already there. It naturally washes out of the root.
I have not been in one of our sugar beet factories since I was in college. I did a tour back then in the early 90s, and it was just fun and fascinating to go.
Yeah.
I think the sugar beet process in itself has multi-steps, but they're pretty simplistic when you think about it. We're pouring hot water over it. In fact, when I do classroom visits for 4th graders, often I will try to stop at a pile and grab a beet off of there. Sorry guys, I'm swiping one of your sugar beets. And then just bust it open in the classroom and give kids a little piece of it, and they'll lick it, and they're fascinated by the sugar taste right off the bat.
Absolutely. Yep. And the same process that was started when Napoleon was ruling France. And he started it, I think it was discovered in Germany, and he started using that because he no longer had access to the British sugar from the Caribbean islands.
They were saving it for all the rum.
Well, no, they were in the middle of the French and British War. Wars have been fought over sugar.
Oh, quite a few. And the only reason, when you said that up at the Caribbean, the only thing that comes to mind is the fact that in order to have an actual rum, it has to be cane sugar from the Caribbean. So therefore, we don't have distillers up here making a rum per se. We do have a caller, though. And Jeff is on the line. He wants to ask a sugar question, something sweet.
Hi, Bridgette.
Hi.
Nice show.
Thanks.
So I've got a question. If I had the brown sugar and it wasn't spun off, the molasses was not spun off, and I had a tablespoon of that and a tablespoon of the white sugar with the molasses off, would they taste different?
Bill.
The white sugar does taste. You're talking about adding the molasses back to the white sugar. Is that what you're saying?
No, if I spun the molasses off
Mm-hmm.
and I had that real sugar that I get at the store on my spoon, but if I had a spoonful of before they spun it off, would that sugar taste different with the molasses on it?
Absolutely, it would taste like brown sugar. If you're using brown sugar from a sugar beet, it would have an earthy flavor to you. It would not be as pleasant as brown sugar from
Oh.
sugar cane. All of the local brown sugar here is actually made by us spinning the beet molasses off and then putting cane molasses back on it because it's a more pleasant taste. We take all of the
Is the
brown.
molasses?
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Is the molasses that's spun off used for anything, or is it thrown
Oh,
out?
that's where I was going. You're
Yes.
amazing. You're amazing. We have two facilities at 2 of our 5 factories that use reverse osmosis of all things to remove 80% of the sugar from that molasses, and then that sugar is recrystallized and sold as white sugar. The brown liquid that's left, we thought we'd have to pay somebody $80 a ton to spread on some field somewhere. And I think it was NDSU, I'm not sure of that, but I think it was NDSU discovered that if you add that brown liquid to poultry rations, it makes chicken breasts larger. And yes, there's lots of jokes about that.
I have some that come to mind. Okay, thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
One last thing, and that brown liquid also melts road ice at a lower temperature. That's that liquid you see on I-94.
We see that out here quite a lot.
We can't make enough of the stuff. We sell it for way big bucks now. We can't make enough.
Well, everybody's got to get a profit opportunity somewhere. Only 50% of farmers are going to make money this year. So
Yeah.
when we return after bottom of the hour news, we have many things. First of all, get yourselves ready. We're going to need to ask for a caller for the Eagles concert. So when we come back, we will play that sounder, and then we'll find out what number caller we're going to take, because, Bill, you're going to decide that number for us. We will do that when we come back. And also, Bill has a story about an F-16 joyride. So stay tuned. Oh, and the phone lines are lighting up. They heard that sounder. Bill, what number caller are we looking for Addison to take today?
Let's go with 3.
Number 3 is going to win. They're going to qualify. We are giving away a chance to win the Desperado Vegas Dream Vacation. This is presented by American Security and Gate, also brought to you in part by Frontier Airlines and Kingpins Social. Our winner will be announced on Wednesday, January 8th at a giveaway party at the Elite Suite at Kingpin Social. But if you win, you not only get 2 round-trip airfare tickets on Frontier Airlines from Fargo to Vegas, a hotel stay, and 2 tickets to see the Eagles on Saturday, January 25th at the Sphere in Las Vegas. I've seen pictures of it. It looks phenomenal. Very excited for people who qualify for this. Have you ever seen the Eagles, Bill?
I've never seen them.
I haven't either, so I'm a little intrigued.
Oh, yeah, that'd be kind of fun to see how they're doing nowadays.
I would say that there's a lot of folks that I remember watching when I was young, and now I realize we're all a lot older. Them and me.
If we're lucky, we're all a lot older.
We are doing very well.
Yeah.
So Addison's taking that information for our caller. He'll let us know who is winning, but I think if he's talking on the phone this long, we might already have our number 3. Bill, I promised folks before we went to hear the news that you made mention of the joyride in F-16. Is it a lot of joy at that many G's?
Oh, yes, it is. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do tell.
Oh, yeah. The wing commander was retiring, and right there in front of everybody, I was standing next to his wife in the back of the room, and he said, Bill's done such a good job as Inspector General. I'm going to give him a ride, an incentive ride, in a 2-seat trainer variant of the F-16.
Okay.
And within a week, there we were, sitting still on the end of the runway at Hector Field, which to 10,000 feet, I think was less than 10 seconds.
Oh, feel your eyebrows move a little further back on your head.
Oh, most people have experienced an airliner flight where they punch it and you get sucked back into the seat. Well, yeah, that's but this is something else.
I bet it is.
And I knew the thing had a lot of power, but wow. And then Fargo to Devil's Lake was right around 10 minutes, I think.
Fargo to Devil's Lake, which is normally about 2.5 for sure, 3 hours.
It seemed like it was about 10 minutes.
I bet it did.
The one that got me was a negative 2G dive. We went from 20,000 feet roughly down to 10,000 feet in less than 10 seconds.
Did you learn you're a puker?
I am not. I came close.
Well, I bet.
Yeah, and but for me, what got me, you're strapped in really tight, and you feel it when they strap you in before you.
A reason why you're
There,
strapped
and
in.
there's a reason.
I've raced cars. I understand why this is important.
And you put your fist on top of your head. That's about how far the plexiglass was from the top of my helmet.
Okay, I'm
So
doing
at
that
home,
now.
Yeah, if you're at home, that's what you do. And when I came up off my seat, I couldn't feel the straps. So in my head, the only thing between me and God was plexiglass.
Yes.
And that got to me. And Lyle, my commander, said, "How are you doing?" I said, "Well, that dive kind of got me." He said, "Well, would you like to take control of the aircraft?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And in the F-16,
Wait. Is this a wreck it, you buy it situation?
Oh, I'm sure it would be.
Okay.
If you're around to pay for it.
All right, keep going.
And I said, "Sure." And he said, "Okay, I think it was a 90-degree turn to the right. And the aircraft will do 9 Gs. The control stick is off to the side so your arm can rest on an armrest, because at 4 or 5 Gs, you can't lift your arm up. You can move your wrist, but that's about it."
Wow.
And so I got the aircraft up to 4.5 Gs doing a right turn. And he got on the radio and he said, "Hey, you've done that before." And his story was that he flew, there's a long story behind that one too. He flew a twin-engine prop job in Vietnam for the Navy, and then came home, flew crop duster planes for a while, got in the North Dakota Air Guard, started flying F-4s. He was hanging around base ops one day, and they said, "Hey, how'd you like to take this guy down to Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana, bomber base for a speech?" "Oh, yeah, sure." Turns out it was Chuck Yeager.
Oh, very cool.
And they flew into Barksdale Air Force Base, worst thunderstorm he had ever seen, dark.
Yep.
He had to crab the aircraft about 45 degrees to the runway to keep it over the runway.
Sure.
And then jink it at the last second so it would go down the runway. And they got up there. If I need to wait for...
No, you're fine. You can keep going.
And he popped the hood, or the canopy, And General Yeager got out to go give a speech, and some major took him off for dinner. The next day they were leaving, and they were going to New Mexico, and then he was returned to base. And he said, "Well, how was the soiree last night, General?" And he said, Yeager said to me, "Well, they were pretty surprised we landed because they had just closed the base." And I responded to them, "Yeah, maybe so, but for a fighter pilot, piece of cake."
Anybody can come in.
He had just been complimented in his flying skill by Chuck Yeager.
Absolutely. That's
And I
excellent.
had just been complimented by him.
That's excellent.
And I did lose 4.5 pounds in an hour and a half.
Really?
The G suit only takes care of 1 G.
Okay.
The rest of it is isometrics.
Sure.
And it's a lot of work.
Okay, so many things going on over here. First of all, we have a listener, Chad. He said, "I did 2 positive and 5 negative in a glider in Cold Lake, Canada."
Ouch.
I like that response. Sounds like that hurt.
5 negative sounds pretty nasty. And in fact, I was taking a shower after the flight, and one of the other fighter pilots who was not along with us that day asked me how it went, and I told him about the negative 2G dive.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh God," he said, "everybody gets sick on a negative dive because your breakfast comes up."
I'll be honest with you. I can get sick on the carousel or at the the carousel over at Shields, the big Ferris wheel. That's not for me. One thing I heard you talk about was landings. I have an uncle who was in the Navy, and he tells me that when you are flying a commercial flight, and so often many of those folks had come from the military to fly those flights, he said you can always tell the difference between a Navy pilot and an Air Force pilot, because the Air Force pilots bring them down nice and smooth, where the Navy pilots are still hitting a deck and then catching the wire.
So they hit it hard, so they catch the wire. And I've seen probably 5 or 10 videos on social media showing the difference between an Air Force and a Navy pilot, and
Absolutely.
It's amazing. And Navy aircraft are built tougher to take that tougher landing because they are trained to land it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so one more caller coming in for you, Bill. So let's go ahead and take our caller on the line. Who do we got? All right, Larry. You can go right ahead, Larry.
Hello.
Hi.
Just listening to Bill there, I think I know who he is, but I was wondering on his rides if he got to pull up behind the tanker with the 16 or the 4. I was an air-to-air refueler.
We did not get to refuel that day. That would have been fun because that's a pretty delicate dance at something like 200 or 300 miles an hour. And you've got to connect to a hose at 200 or 300 miles an hour.
Either the hose or the boom.
Yep.
But I was the guy that laid in the back of the tanker.
Oh man.
And hooked them together, and I always could look down and see basically who was down there. And
hey, Larry, I thought it was tough when I had to refuel tractors. I think you just made this a lot harder than I might have anticipated.
Oh. Well, I had the opportunity to ride with you around Big Iron, so
yes, you did.
I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome. Larry
Anyway,
don't forget to listen on Tuesday, Larry. My co-pilot Naomi will be my co-host. Larry got to spend some time on a golf cart with us.
Oh, say.
Yes. Larry, thank you so much for calling in. We appreciate it. And folks.
And thanks for your service.
Absolutely. Thanks for your service. And folks, we are going to be back in just a few moments. We will touch on the weather. We'll find out who our qualifier was for the Eagles concert and so much more. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus, and I get a special co-host today. That's Bill Hejl. Bill is from Castleton, and we've been talking all things military and farming and sugar and so much more. If it was a overcast day, I feel like it would be even cooler. And today we're going to probably hit a high of about 14, so it's not so bad. We've got some sunshine. We have a low of -1 coming tonight, maybe a little bit of freezing rain, particularly towards the south end of the valley, so let's exercise some caution tomorrow on our way to a 26-degree day. And Sunday, 35. It's going to be like a heat wave, Bill.
A tropical heat wave.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, and tropics, for those who are looking forward to going to Las Vegas, maybe to see the Eagles, we just had a qualifier call in. We had number 3. That was Justin, so he's now registered. He'll be going to the giveaway party on January the 8th.
Congratulations, Justin. You're number 3.
That's exactly right. Maybe he'll be number 1 when the next time they
Could
call
be.
his name.
Could be.
So before we came back in, Bill, you and I were talking, what's one of the things that you felt military-wise really prepared you for what you do in ag and so much more? And you said behavioral sciences. Tell me
It really
more.
did. We were, I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, and that was typically 20 cadets, and
Okay.
an officer was the instructor. We'd studied Pavlov's dog, the power of positive reinforcement.
Yes.
And I don't remember why, but I talked the other 19 cadets into whenever the instructor, this was before he got in the classroom, of course, whenever he got up in front of us and was walking around, if he walked toward the classroom door, pay attention, raise your hand, ask questions, make comments, take notes. Whenever he walked away from the classroom door, don't take notes, never raise your hand, never ask a question, never answer a question, and look at the clock and doodle all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Within 3 one-hour classes, we had him leaning on the door through the entire class. We were in an alcove, and I went to the instructor on the other side of the alcove, told him what we had done, and he laughed about like you just did. And I said, so 15 minutes after class starts, tiptoe over and yank the door open. And he did that, and our captain, we're all cadets, he goes tumbling out into the hallway. And he doesn't yell, scream, or get angry. He comes, he's laughing again, just like you are. And he came running back in the classroom. Who did that? And I raised my hand. He had me teach the class. And the power of...
Hold on. What you're saying is you are the trainer of bad ideas. I like this. This is
There you
going
are.
well. Thank you, Bill.
But the power of all we did was pay attention to him.
Yes.
And we changed his, and he was an intelligent guy. He had worked on spy satellites just back in 1974. And he couldn't leave the continental United States for 20 years.
Because of
what
the
he'd
fear
worked
of what
on.
he knew.
Well, what he knew. Yeah, he was that smart.
Mm-hmm.
And to change him so subtly just by paying attention to him. And throughout my career in the Air Force and in civilian life, the number of people who I've offered a sincere compliment to, always sincere, never make them up,
Oh, yes.
who have said to me, you're the first person in my life who's ever complimented me.
But you know what, Bill? Especially right now when I think about our farm community.
Exactly.
When we look at the statistics, CoBank and the American Bankers Association came out and said only 50% of farms are going to be profitable in 2024.
Yep.
There's a lot weighing on folks right now.
Oh, man.
So that power of positivity
Mm-hmm.
should be happening in a variety of ways.
And more than but also it goes back to the pay attention. Pay attention to your neighbor.
Yes.
You're not in the Air Force together, but you're in farming to your neighbors.
Yes.
Be a neighbor. Pay attention to how your neighbor's doing.
Yes.
Ask, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Because I was later, 25 years later, I was commander of security forces. And our folks had to go up and do some security up in Grand Forks. And one of our folks decided to commit suicide.
Oof.
And this was 3 days before my father lost his battle with prostate cancer.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, I told everybody in the security forces squadron at our next guard drill, when I was back on guard drill, I said, my father would have done anything for 5 more minutes.
Yes.
And this young man
Yes.
couldn't stand 5 more minutes. We're a team. Pay attention to each other. Each and every one of us, including me,
Mm-hmm.
could have reached out and said, hey, how are you doing?
And an impact like that makes you choose
Mm-hmm.
to do better
Exactly.
every time.
Yeah.
And we have lots of resources, whether they're for those who are specific to farm and ranch, as civilians, as you said.
Yeah.
There's so many different places. if you think you don't know where you should go,
Mm-hmm.
and even if you're not at the point of suicide, but depression, anxiety, one call to 988
Exactly.
can help put you in the right place.
Yeah.
Also, I keep a running list that folks can ask for who to communicate with, whether it's
Right.
the Farm and Ranch Stress Hotline,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is we're reaching out to Rural Minds, which was started by Jeff Winton, a dairy farmer in Western New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to email that out. And folks who are looking for it can
Mhm.
email me, ag@flagfamily.com, and I'll share that anytime that folks are looking. I just want to make sure that they feel better.
Get that wherever you can, and take care of each other. Be a team.
Well, not everybody really. There was a long time where we were on the same team. We farm together. We do things. That's changed in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we get it back.
Oh, and I bump into it all the time. I'm a widower. Whenever I'm talking with a widow, at some point in the conversation, we talk about how nice it is to have somebody who cares if you're alive or dead. Again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you don't always necessarily have that contact with other
Right.
people all
Yeah.
day long.
You do with your family probably. And
Hopefully.
most people do.
Yeah, hopefully.
But just somebody you met who decides they care if you're alive or dead. That's a
Yeah.
big thing.
And I think for farmers, you look for someone who speaks your language.
Yes.
Whether
Oh,
you
yeah.
raised cattle,
Mhm.
whether you farmed, whatever that might have been.
Or you're just interested in what a farmer does. You don't have to be a farmer. You can just, hey, what does a sugar beet look like?
I always say that at least 50% of my audience is non-farming consumers. My job here every day is to help learn,
Mm-hmm.
teach whatever I can. By Jove, yes. Let's treat it that way. Let's
Yeah.
make sure that everyone's included.
Whenever I come in here, I'm asking you questions about how you do this job.
Well, today, a lot of dumpster fire crazy, but otherwise not too bad, Bill. So, folks, thanks for being here today. Bill, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for asking me. Merry Christmas, everybody.
And stay tuned. Jay Thomas coming up next.